I met Dan through a mutual friend at a party.
I was invited by my ex-girlfriend, which is kind of ironic.
So she invited me over to the party. Dan actually wasn't invited. I was the one who was invited.
And I showed up to the party, not expecting to find anyone, but
Dan finally showed up, and I didn't know he was coming. I didn't know anything about him. And I saw him walk through the back door onto the deck, and
we started talking about all our interests, such as bands and movies. We ended up staying up all night talking back and forth for hours and hours, and it just seemed to flow so smoothly.
I was starting to get tired, and I ended up falling asleep on the couch, and he got up and slept the whole night on the floor, and I could tell, I knew he was a really, really good guy.
It took me a long time to ask her out. She actually made the first move on asking me out, which is kind of embarrassing.
I didn't hear from him forever, actually. I think it took him probably a month or two to even text me.
But our first kind of date-ish was at a concert. She invited me to a concert that she had won tickets to.
And I had 4 tickets, and I didn't have anybody to invite really, and I had one of my good girlfriends wanted to go, but I didn't know who else to invite, so I remembered him from the party, and I'm like, maybe he would want to go. He liked rock music.
And I went with my friend Brandon, and he ended up splitting off and going somewhere completely different, so I started hanging out with her and her friend.
We had a really good time, and then he actually did end up asking me out.
It took me about another month to finally make the move.
And we went to a movie together, and after the movie, he had a bouquet of flowers for me.
And asked her to be my girlfriend.
The day that Dan proposed, I had absolutely no idea.
I started talking and brainstorming with my buddy on the couch, what should I do? And he's like, oh, maybe you should do pumpkins. And I was like, yeah. So I kind of ran with the idea. And
I was completely taken off guard. I was so shocked. I had no idea he was even planning anything.
We started carving the pumpkins and gutted them. It took hours. But eventually we got it done, and I had to use some power tools in the process.
He told me to come over to his house because he had a scavenger hunt planned for us.
So the day of the proposal, me and my mom went to the lake and set up.
And I was like, okay, that sounds a little fishy, but he's always doing fun stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, he had a scavenger hunt planned for us.
We went on to the park and parked, and I told her to close her eyes.
And he drives me all the way to what I find out is Creve Coeur Lake Park.
I let her out on the bridge.
And he makes me keep my eyes closed the whole time, and he leads me up to a bunch of running water. I can hear water running, and I'm like, what are we doing here? What is this?
And told her to look over at the pumpkins, but I kind of screwed it up. I was already on one knee.
He's kneeling, and he has a ring out, and so I'm staring down at him, and he's like, no, look over there. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's going on?
And I was like, no, up there. And she was gasping and crying and stuff.
And he had all these pumpkins carved, and they were all lit up, and they were spelling, each one had a letter, and it was spelling "Marry Me." And I was like, oh my God. And it was the coolest thing ever, and I started crying, and it was awesome. And I said yes.